Hey everyone, welcome back to Talk Tech with Tiff. In this episode, I sat down with Nick, who most recently held a position as UX researcher at Google. Prior to that, she's worn many different hats, from software developer, data analyst, and so many other roles, which we dive into. Recently, she was impacted by the layoffs at Google, and she shares about her experience through that. Also, I link down below my newsletter, which covers job postings, career tips, and so much more. So make sure to go check it out. All right, let's get started. Welcome to Talk Tech with Tiff, the New York edition, where I am sitting down with industry professionals to hear about their career journeys and current roles. I created this series to hear from people who are established in the tech industry so that we can all learn what these individuals do in their day-to-day jobs and the type of opportunities out there. Hi, Tiffany. How are you today?
I'm great. Super excited to be here, Tiffany.
I am so excited. I'm definitely I'm so excited to be here with you today because, as I was saying to you earlier, I've been reading a lot about HacWare and your journey and the mission behind HacWare, which we'll dive into in a second here, and I'm really excited to. But before we even do that, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Yeah, I'm Tiffany Ricks. I'm the founder and CEO of HacWare. And prior to HacWare, I'm a serial entrepreneur, but I've always been in tech. I love technology. It was a place where I feel like I found my tribe because the way I talk, the way I think, and then I met people who sort of talked and thought the way I did. So I went to school for computer science. Mm-hmm. I went to school in Atlanta, Georgia at a historically Black college and university, Clark Atlanta University, studied computer science, loved it because it appealed to my thought process of solving problems. And now I had a tool to solve problems.
Yeah.
And then, started my first company when I was in college and then started 4 other companies and have always just loved how technology evolves. Moved into cybersecurity and worked as an ethical hacker. And I love this dynamic of cybersecurity. It's about identifying risk, vulnerabilities, and then using software as a tool to solve those problems. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit about me, but happy to dive in more.
I love that. When you went to computer science
mm-hmm.
and you mentioned that you really enjoyed it because it related to the way you think with solving problems. But prior to going into or knowing computer science, or I guess my question is, how did you know computer science was for you? Was there courses in high school you took, or how did you initially discover it?
Good question. Well, when I started, there wasn't any programming classes like there are for many students now. For me, when I got started, it was typing classes. And so it was about learning how to type and wanting to learn how to type fast. And that was like my entry into sort of technology. And then the other thing was I am a gamer. My growing up, I grew up with my brother, my cousins, and the way for me to be able to have fun with them was gaming. And I knew that technology was for me, but was because it unlocked a curiosity where I wanted to know, how do these games work? They look so real, and I would break them open. I had a Game Boy back then. That was popular, Game Boys. And so I would break it open because I wanted to know, how did it work? And I was trying to figure out, like, how do they make these characters so real? And I want to reverse engineer and figure out how I can build it.
Wow.
And then I went to my guidance counselor, and for me, it was 2 options. It was going into technology, computer science, or it was going into being a veterinarian. Like, I love pets. So, and at that time, they had these forecasts of, when you get out of college, like, what does that outlook look like? And for tech, it was a very promising outlook. And where I'm from, I come from very humble beginnings where there's not many people who are from where I'm from going to college or, definitely getting into tech. And so I saw this as an opportunity where I could do something that I love. And when I get out, I can have a good life, a good outcome. And immediately when I took my first computer science class, that's when I knew that I made the right decision. Because it was just all about like figuring out how do you build something and how do you create something and all of these challenges and problems and how do you solve them. And that for me was my jam. Like that was what I felt like I finally was in a place where I felt like it's for me. Although it wasn't many women and others, minorities who were there, but I felt like mentally this was for me.
This was for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting. You mentioned you were sharing a story about how you would essentially reverse engineer your PlayStation, what are they called? No, Nintendo. Game Boys. Yes, Game Boys. And it's foreshadowing into essentially, what it was like from such a young age, what you're doing, the business you have built today, which is a very interesting story as well. But before we get into what you're up to today with HacWare, I'd love to hear more about some of the other businesses that you have founded and, what you really enjoyed about them or what you've learned from them throughout that entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, Tiff. I think for me, it's all about not waiting for someone to solve my problem. And the problem was burning so deep where I just couldn't let it go.
Yeah.
And so the first problem that I was solving really was when I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I learned how to build technology. I learned how to build software. And I built this point of sale software solution. Mm-hmm. And then for me, my entrepreneur side kicked in. And I was thinking, well, is there an opportunity for me to sell this software that I built? Mm-hmm. My dad was an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to build a big business. And so for me, it was thinking, okay, I have this software. I want to see if I can sell it. And I sold it to some local restaurants in the area.
Wow.
And then from there, it was, all right, how do I, and they were small mom and pop restaurants that needed a way to be able to check out funds and transfer funds easily. And they needed an easy user interface to make that happen. Mm-hmm. And it worked well in that demographic, but where the challenge happened was going upstream and working with larger chain restaurants, which I learned really quickly that it wasn't a company that was backed by investors. It was a bootstrap business, which means I used all my funds and whatever revenue I got in, I had to use that to grow the company. Mm-hmm. And so the challenge was going upstream. It's a longer sales cycle. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't any funds coming in, but expenses were going out. And so it failed because the learning was just trying to understand sales cycles, making sure that you can, have enough capital to be able to handle that venture. But the smart thing for me, I learned that I take into my business is having a diversity of types of businesses to handle, different sales cycles. So I like having ones that pay faster, which is, shorter, small businesses. They can pay faster. The decision-making process is shorter. And then, that allows me to be able to work with businesses that are bigger, that have a longer sales cycle. And then the other business that I built was I had moved to Atlanta, Georgia although I'm here in New York City now, I'm originally from Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And so I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I was the only person there. I didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
And I love hair.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. It's a hard thing to be able to find beauty services in a city that you're new to at that time.
Yes.
And so I decided I wanted to build a marketplace that could make it easy for people to get beauty services, and it focused on the minority community. So being able to, get local hairstylists and beauty professionals to be able to show their work on my platform, and then be able to put appointment setting capabilities where their customers can book right there on the platform. There's a lot of platforms that do that now, but back then, 10 years ago, that wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. And then the other side was now this audience, this customer base can, be able to look and see, does this, beauty professional, can they do what I need them to do for me? And so it was a two-sided marketplace. But the thing is, with the two-sided marketplace, it's a chicken and egg problem. And so you have to make sure you have enough beauty professionals there who have appointments open to be able to handle that demand. And then you also have to have, those consumers who are there who want to buy from those professionals and make them want to put more of their services on the platform. And so it was just the challenge of trying to get those two things to work. And then also I was a mom. I just had my daughter who was an infant and trying to manage this new business. We had celebrity hairstylists on it. It had scale. Wow. It had an audience. But that audience, it was trying to figure out how do we make this audience pay? And it was another bootstrap business. So trying to, get the audience to pay, which was a challenge. And then my third business, which kind of comes to a little bit of the beginning of HacWare, was I had a commute. So this business was a business that I was also working with one of the largest defense contractors, working with the United States Air Force and the Navy. And that was my day job. But my problem that I was trying to solve was, how do I get from point A, from home to work in a way that isn't stressful? So my commute, I had a 3-hour round trip commute.
That's a long commute.
Yeah. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, well, I know that there's many who have this same problem. Yeah. How do we all get to point A to point B and share this ride together where it's, we're solving the pain point of the cost, but also we're saving ourselves time. And so that was a great solution. I launched it in Dallas. I launched it in D.C. I was showcased at South by Southwest, so I launched it in Austin, and then had an exit with that. So I successfully sold that technology to another company.
Congratulations!
Thank you. And then I decided I was tired of entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And what's funny is that I love technology. I love businesses, but it is a very, very tough thing to do. And then when I started, I'm wondering, why do I keep doing this to myself? And so I went and I started working for 100% just working in corporate America. And that allowed me to understand, how do you build enterprise software? Yeah. Because it's different when you have a startup and you're building something, but there's not really like formal processes to your software development life cycle. But when you're working at an enterprise, you get to learn how to build enterprise solutions. But that led me to the journey of, working with the military and learning, okay, now I know how to build enterprise solutions, but I also have to learn how to build resilient software.
Yes.
That can handle, cyber criminals trying to exploit and try to figure out how they can get in, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but that's something that we forget in the development world, is 100%. That our code, if we're not thinking about it from a security mindset, it could be exploited. 100%. And so worked there for some time, and then I realized that the entrepreneurship bug was biting me again, but I didn't have a product at the time. Okay. And so I was just thinking about, well, I know I can build. I love building. I could just build for others. And so I built a consultancy. And I was able to bring on my employer as one of our first contracts.
Stop.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. Congratulations, by the way. I think that's a huge win to go from, I'm kind of interjecting for a second, but I just think that's huge to go from working for someone to them still paying you, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Like you're now, that's incredible.
But I tell people that all the time. It's about relationship building. Yeah. And so even if you are when I was in a company, I was an entrepreneur. Yeah. Like I knew that, even though I wasn't having my own company, this department that I was working in, this was my company.
I love that.
And so, building those relationships and then deciding to leaving on positive terms, making sure that the company that I'm leaving, that they can still be successful. Yes. So if I need to go back in another capacity with an entrepreneurship venture, or if I need to come back because I just need to work with them again, I can.
Exactly.
And so... that's really important, just to never, no matter the relationship, to not burn a bridge.
Because the world is so small.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get in the tech world, it's even smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know that person, they might know someone that knows you and whatnot.
Oh,
and I love looking at it from the perspective of treating where you were working at the time in corporate America as your own business.
Mm-hmm.
Because as someone so for myself right now, I'm working at a startup. And then as I have a business through Tiffintech on the side, I can relate so much to the owner of that startup in the sense that this is their baby.
Yeah.
This is so important to them. So how would I want my employees to go about their day and whatnot? I always keep that in mind because you never know when it will come full circle again.
And that's key. And those are the best people to work with, is someone who understands the entrepreneurship journey.
Yes.
And that's why a lot of times when you see startup job postings, and a lot of times they're calling out, they want somebody who has had a startup, maybe, entrepreneur minded, because they understand the journey of trying to build something from nothing and how it can be hard, but also being able to put yourself in the CEO's shoes because you've been there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And when after you left corporate America, you went into creating your own consulting company.
Mm-hmm.
How did that lead into what you are doing today with HacWare? Actually, maybe a question that before you share that, for those watching who are not familiar with HacWare, we keep on mentioning it throughout. So what is HacWare?
Thank you for asking. HacWare is a cybersecurity learning platform. So we use AI to help companies protect their end users with phishing education. Mm-hmm. And we build AI-driven phishing simulations that learn from real threats. Mm-hmm. We also are training the user after that simulation is sent. How do they change their risky behavior? So how do they, with a micro video, understand how to not fall for a phishing attack when it actually happens? Mm-hmm. And so this is an automated platform that is working for lean security teams to make sure that the employees that they support can empower them to report, avoid these phishing attacks that are happening every day.
And that's becoming, I'm preaching the choir to you, but that is becoming more and more important as the hours go by. And when you started HacWare, what inspired you to start it? Was it through working closely with the Navy, or what was your journey from your consulting business into HacWare?
Yeah, the journey was really, we were trying to solve a problem for us in-house.
Yeah.
So there was the thing I love about HacWare that I can see now is that it combines two of my loves. Mm-hmm. Again, cybersecurity. So trying to find vulnerabilities. And we did that with our red team operations, ethical hacking. So we would go to an organization would hire us because they wanted to know how a cyber criminal could get into their organization. And it's all about showing them all of the areas where it could be through phishing, it could be through some application vulnerability. And then from there, then it was, how do I use my solution background to build a solution to solve that problem that we found?
Yeah.
And so that's where the software engineering side came in. And one of the things that I kept seeing was with our engagements with working with military contractors and then working with small businesses, enterprise businesses, when we would do these red team operations, phishing was always a way that we could show them that a cyber criminal could get to their end users and then take data out of the organization. And that was a trend across all size companies. But the problem is running a business in labor. So it's a service business that we have, and all of us spending the time running these phishing these red team operations, it became too expensive, and I wanted to build a tool in-house that could automate and do this stuff for us. So it could, understand what's going on in the threat landscape, because that's what we would do. We would go and look and try to see how are these phishing attacks happening, and then try to look at the organization, understand the employees that they have, figure out who would be a good target, and then from there craft a email to try to see if these employees are going to fall for it. And that takes time. Sometimes that can take 2 to 4 weeks doing that exercise and trying to do it over and over again.
Yes.
And so I wanted a product in-house that could automate that for us, where we can go do other things. It worked really well for us. And then I was like, I finally got a product, because I love product.
Yes. Yeah.
I love product. And I don't really like the service side of things.
Yeah.
It's great, but it's not for me. And so then I thought, okay, I know that there's other businesses who have this problem. And so I decided to work with some companies that had a service business, a managed service managed service companies who in the Dallas area needed a solution like this. And so I sold it to these organizations in Dallas, and then they gave feedback. So they said, it works well. The phishing simulations are real, but what do we do after that? So you're showing me all of these people who are vulnerable to phishing. And you're not remediating this risk. You're not helping me solve this problem and put a solution in place.
Yes, you're showing the problem.
Yeah, I'm showing the problem,
where's
but
the
what's
solution?
next?
Yeah.
And then they're so busy, they're thinking, well, I don't have the time to create a solution. I don't have the time to go in now and try to figure out what training do I need to send to all of these people. And the tools that were out there are other tools that are focusing on security awareness. That's where we play. But again, they were manual. It required someone to go in, enroll someone into these courses, and then follow up after. So then I decided, okay, we got the feedback. They like the phishing simulation part of the platform. That's working great. That has the wow factor. But now we need to train these individual users. And so we're meeting the needs for the administrator, the security administrators, but we have to create an experience that the employees want to take the video. They want to watch the video. They want to learn from it. And so that was another challenge.
Wow.
And then we learned short is the key. So we have to, right when they fail a phishing simulation, enroll them into a short video right then and there based on what they got wrong. And now the adoption is it's easier to consume. Just like content now. Content now is short form. People don't want to sit through long content. Unless it's something that they're super passionate about.
But employees might not be super passionate about. They're like, I'm doing this to appease my employer. But then they're actually learning as they're doing it. But,
so like people like us who are into tech and into cybersecurity, we probably wouldn't mind it. We probably would be excited and want to learn more. But you have, different functional groups in an organization where they just want to know, how can I do my job more securely, and can I get back to my job? And that's where we came up with the version of HacWare that is being used today.
And you have really shared the progress or the journey of HacWare, where it started and how it's continued to evolve as you see the needs from your current clients and as the tech industry is evolving. Is there, and maybe Tiffany, you can't share too much, I'm not sure, but is there something you can share with us that is coming up next for HacWare, or is it more like stay tuned kind of thing? Or
we're always evolving, and and this is where I get excited because I really love the way that AI products are getting adopted now. When HacWare first came out, it was a product, when you mentioned artificial intelligence or machine learning, people did not get excited about that. There was a little bit of fear and, concern about, well, what is this thing actually going to be doing? And but now the exciting thing is just seeing how it's really exciting to see how people are trying to find applications for
adopting.
AI
Yeah.
in their day to day. And so I think we're just going to keep dialing into on that. I mean, the thing that we're trying to do is make sure that our generative phishing capabilities, that it continues to emulate, and maybe there's two sides. We want to make sure that if someone in our network email gets compromised, which is called a business email compromise attack, and then they use that person's inbox to go after people in that user's network. Now, so the thing here is that you want to make sure that sometimes the content is on par with what this individual will say. And so when we talk about generative AI, we want to make sure that we can impersonate this individual in what they potentially would say. But again, we're trying to help end users create that pause where maybe they are looking at the contents and maybe there's something in there that is off about the message, but really trying to take it a little bit higher and elevate it, because that's how some of these attacks are happening. And then the other side of business email compromise scams is now we're going to do a test where we're going to say something that this person wouldn't say. Like it's their inbox, but they may work in finance, and so that's true. And there is money that is there, but the policy and process for asking for funds or wire transfers is what we're doing is going outside of that process. So it could be that we're sending an email asking for funds to be wired, but this is not what Tiff would ask, even though it's in her role and it's in her responsibilities. This isn't what she would ask. And so we want to continue to elevate that. We have the capabilities, but it's all about continuing to evolve and learn. And then also on the training side, building a true recommendation engine that is going to keep looking at what has this person watched, and almost like Netflix, trying to understand what should they watch next?
Yeah, like where have they come from? What have they seen? What else can we help educate them with?
Yeah.
I feel like I could sit down with you for hours on end, because your personal journey or your career journey and even with HacWare, there's so much to dive into. And for those watching though, I always like to end these conversations with, what is some advice that you would give your younger self? And I like to end it with that because, I mean, your career journey is so interesting, and how you speak of entrepreneurship, I find so inspiring, how you just go after things and just figure it out along the way. So what is some advice you'd give to your younger self?
My younger self, there's so much time spent preparing, and sometimes I spend way much time just overly preparing, like looking at all of the different scenarios. And then once I get there, I realize I really didn't need to I spent so much time, preparing. And it's all about sometimes getting enough information for this level that I'm at, and then just taking that step versus thinking 30 steps ahead, and it's a waste of time because there's so much, especially in this environment, like things are changing so much and it's changing so fast. And it's really all about just getting started. And that's what I tell my team. And anyone who's getting involved into technology, really it's all about just taking the step of starting and then just compound on it. Just keep compounding on it. And not about thinking and not focusing on making your first step the perfect step, the right step, because it's information. It can help you along your journey. But you're going to waste so much time just trying to prepare that you're going to be missing some opportunities. 100%. So for me, it's just about, what do we need right now to get started? And then we can build the iterative approach.
I love that.
That's what I would tell myself. And I have to keep telling myself.
Yes, I hear you. And it's so true, especially as as someone who is tries not to be, but a bit of a perfectionist, it's like, well, I got to wait till this is in place or this is in place. It's like, no, just start. Even with your story, starting out in POS, like point of sale, and then going into a beauty entrepreneurship. It's completely, on paper anyways, it looks like it's so different than HacWare, but at the end of the day, the skills you have built.
So much to learn from all of those ventures. And when you look at it from the outside, it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense to me. So many things that I've taken away, and it's compounded where it helps me in what I'm doing now. And I'm sure, once this journey is done and I move on to something else, that'll be helpful, for the next step.
Exactly. I love that. That's great advice to end on. Just get started.
Just start. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Tiffany. It was such a pleasure to sit down with you and really hear about your journey, and then also too about HacWare. And for everyone watching, I will link more information about HacWare and Tiffany down below. I keep on wanting to call you Tiff because I call myself Tiff, but I'll about Tiffany down below. And thank you again.
Thank you, Tiff. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.